All right, welcome to the part 11. All right, so this time we're going to be reading about I used to have a English 10 Standard 5, but now I used to have English 10 Standard 5 back in my sophomore year, but I switched it to English 10 Standard. So, I'm always a standard student. Yeah, but I will be getting college classes too, so. Okay, so HOM. Okay, so it starts with the habits of mind we learn in our school. Not sure if it happens to your school, but I pretty much learn about all the things around my school, which is the habits of mind. My teachers get along with it. All right. For the one that I picked for this phrase was there are 16 habits of mind. So yeah. All right, striving for accuracy, which means by Marisol Castaneda and Quinn Simpson. All right. Explanation of striving for accuracy. The sixth habits of mind is striving for accuracy and precision. In simpler terms, that accuracy refers to doing an action correctly, and precision means you can repeat the action over and over again. Like the darts and stuff like that could be around this. Example how we can use striving for accuracy in North High School. Right, so in math class, we had to study tests. We had to study tests, and studying helps us get good grades. In choir, we had to practice our songs. We had to practice so we can become better singers. We keep working even when it's hard. Okay, so we have to study more tests around any subject you have to go in. It's also required to do all tests and above. All right, for striving for accuracy for English class, I used to have Miss Chaplin. In English class, we do DLLs to work on grammar. This is striving for accuracy because it is practice for using grammar skills. Good grammar is important because it is for obviously communication. We are striving for accuracy by making corrections. It is really not that hard, isn't it? You're, you are, you're, it belongs to you. There, they are. There, it belongs to them. There, a place. Were, we are. Were, past tense of are. Where, a place. Then, a point of time. Then, a method of comparison. Two, the number two. Two indicates motion. Two, also or excessively, yeah. Striving for accuracy at home. Sometimes when I'm at home, I rather do fun times than doing my homework. I make sure I focus on what I need to do. I remove myself for a lot of distraction. I also ask for help when I'm having a hard time. You see, this is a distraction. Yeah, that's about it. I didn't realize that. All right, Filmatod by Filmatod found dead. Investigating possible murder on Daily Record by Mrs. Culp from my English 11 teacher. All right, so introduction. Filmatod was an actress in the 1920s to 1935. She was in silent movies and then proved herself to be good at comedy. She was in several films with the Marx Brothers, Buster Keaton, and Laurel and Hardy. Todd was found dead in the car in a garage belonging to Jewel Carmen. Carmen was the ex-wife of Thelma Todd's lover, Roland West, although her death was ruled as carbon monoxide poisoning. It is unclear why Todd was in the car. Sorry. Sorry. There were several suspicious cir- circumstances surrounding the death of Thelma Todd and who was ultimately to blame. Biography of the victim. Born July 29th, 1906. Died December 16th, 1945. Born in Massachusetts. Thelma planned to be a school teacher. She competed in several beauty pageants, winning the title of Miss Massachusetts, where she was discovered by Hollywood talent agents. Began as an actress in silent films. She was successful in comedies, often starring in storm films. She became romantically romantic romantic romantically involved with one director, Roland West. She successfully opened and managed Film Todd's Sidewalk Cafe. Todd was down in her car in the garage of Jewel Cameron, only a block away from her cave, or from her cave. Biography of the suspects. Pat DeKiko, Thelma Todd's ex-husband, a Hollywood agent who also beat Thelma. Many think he was humiliated by Todd's success and was seeking of revenge. Pat DeKiko, that's him right there, and Lucky Luciano. Lucky Luciano, a psychopathic mobster involved in prostitution, gambling, extortion in Los Angeles, met Thelma at a club. He got her hooked on drugs and alcohol. He abused Thelma in many ways and wanted to take control of the cafe so he could run an illegal gambling ring out of the cafe. Roland West, director who was less successful, such a successful, and Todd's sometime lover. Todd and his life were co-owners of the cafe, and they all lived in the duplex above the cafe. West was unhappy that Todd was so often with other men. Roland West, that's him. Jewel and Roland West. Jewel West, wife of Roland West and co-partner in the cafe, although West reportedly did not mind the affair between Thelma and her husband. She did object to the cafe losing money. The case: Thelma Todd's cafe and home. That's it right there. Saturday evening, Todd and her ex-husband fight at the party. Sunday, Todd speaks on the phone with Jewel. Carmen is seen in her car with the mystery man. Coroner rules Todd's death as a suicide. However, there are marks on her neck. She has a high blood alcohol level, and the car had a gas in it, even though it was not running when found. At 2 a.m. Sunday, West locks doors to cafe apartment to that Todd cannot get into her apartment. Thelma Todd dead in her car. That's it right there. Monday a.m., Todd is found dead in her car in Carmen Jewel's garage. The car is not running when the body is found. Grand jury is split between suicide and murder. Too many questions of evidence and sequence of events prohibited them from reaching the conclusion. Case is still unsolved. Hypothesis and real solution. Lucky Luciano booking photo. I believe that Lucky Luciano had Thelma Todd killed. Luciana, a mob boss, has had the motive to kill Thelma Todd. She did not always want to do as he told her to do, as he wanted to run an illegal gambling operation out of her restaurant, and she would not let him. Luciana routinely abused Todd and would had the man power to beat her unconscious and put her in her car in a garage. Resolution: if Luciana was still alive, he should be put on trial for her murder. Justice would be best served if he were put in jail. However, all parties to this case are dead, and no resolution is possible. York City, Charles Lucky Luciano, Babado King of New York. All right, so here's the quotes, all of it. Um, Murder of 30s starlet Thelma Ty no longer a mystery. So this is all the actress has been. Yeah, that's you can read some of it. All right, sorry. The Lizzie Borden case research pose from Miley. Sorry. What exactly is the Lizzie Borden case? Lizzie Andrew Borden was an American woman tried and acquitted of August 4th, 1892, axe murders of her father and stepmother in Fall River, Massachusetts. They are named where Andrew and Abby Borden is rummored and killed, and she killed because of money. According to the Lizzie Borden nursery rhyme, Lizzie Borden took an axe and gave her mother 40 whacks. When she saw what she had done, she gave her father 41, ignoring the taunts. Lizzie lived in high life until her death in 1927. Lizzie Borden nursery rhyme clicked in there. Andrew and Abby Borden. Abby Durfee, Gray Borden, she rumored to have kids, but it's unknown. She married Andrew Borden for 30 years, housewife. Andrew Jackson Borden. He had two daughters, Emma and Lizzie. He married Emma and Lizzie, mom Sarah Morse. 3 years after she died, he remarried to Abby Durfee Gray. He was a carpenter. He sold burial cases and coffins. Invested in real estate at Serval Bank Boards. Child in newly discovered photo believed to be Lizzie Borden. That's the news right there. Additional informational. Since the housekeeper and the housekeeper were the only ones in the house, Lizzie was the only one suspected, could have been the maid. Not a lot of information or evidence gathered and no police reports. Hypothesis. I don't really have the hypothesis. My conclusion, maybe it was a frame shot or of a maid or of a wife, and Lizzie killed Abby. There's not enough information and evidence. My conclusion is that it still could have been anyone. The end. Okay, this was gonna be my assignment for April 14th, 2020. This was for my English class, but I didn't even do it. So type your response here. I don't have any response. All right, scientific method vocabulary. For each word, you should include a definition, a picture, a sentence, or example using the word correctly. Data, facts, and statistics collected together for reference and or analysis. The scientist writes down the data from his lab. Hypothesis, a supposition or proposed explanation, a problem hypothesis or HO or H1, made on the basis of limited evidence as a starting point of further investigation. The scientist wrote down his hypothesis and is hoping to find a solution. Independent variable is like either the height of plant or the amount of water and amount of fertilizer. Doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter which one. Right, so a variable, often denoted by x, was variation does not depend on that of another. The student wrote down the age and time from his lab experiment, which is an example of an independent variable. Dependent variable is a variable often denoted by y. Was value depends on that by another. The scientists with mass measuring and doing tests, which are examples of dependent variables for tests. Observation. The action or process of observing something or someone carefully or in order to gain information. The girl made an observation about the other girl's style. Inference. It's gone. I mean, where is it? A conclusion reached on the basis of evidence and reasoning. The inference was insulting. Constant. I have constant pain, like this boy has, and a doctor can help. Occurring continuously over a period of time, she was constantly braiding her hair. Scientific theory. A scientific theory. A scientific theory is an explanation of an aspect of natural world that can be repeatedly tested and verified in accordance with a scientific method. The scientist wanted to test the scientific theory. Scientific laws are laws of science statements based on repeated experiments or observations that describe or predict a range of natural phenomena. An example of a scientific law in social sciences of Zipf's law, regularities, regularities of the universe, laws of nature. Control group. Experiment. Will students' test scores to be affected by group or this kind of group? Just this group in general. The group in an experiment or study that does not receive treatment by the researchers is then used as a benchmark to measure how the other tested subjects do. Make sure to include a control group in your experiment to ensure your data is valid. Experimental group, independent variable amount of water. Dependent variable, fraction of seeds that sprout, 9 out of 10 seeds sprout, or 0 out of 10 seeds sprout. Experimental group and control group is none. Experimental group is actually from water that can be independent. A group that receives a treatment in an experiment, Nichols and Mogenton and Deck are currently members of experimental group Spurs. Alright, so Cattle Drives and Cowboys, made by Alexia and Emma. Right. Cattle population halted during the time of the Civil War. Longhorn population grew rapidly because of grazing. Why is this a problem? Remedy. Beef had become a popular food. Everyone knows it. Hired cowboys to come to work for them. Transportation for cattle, mostly Mexico is where they got it from. To get it back home, they took long drives. Sorry, cattle trials. Cattle trails. Sorry, trails. Shawnee, San Antonio, Texas, St. Louis, Missouri. Chisholm, San Antonio, Texas, Abilene, Kansas. Western Bandera, Texas, Dodge City, Kansas. 4,455 miles long. Overpopulation versus environment. Overgrazing produced methane, greenhouse gas, biodiversity. Cowboys' jobs, hired by ranchers, tend to the livestock. Superior roping, riding, and herding skills. Herds cows on the trails. Who brought the skills? Who taught them to the Native Americans? Came from Spain. Cowboys taught the Native Americans. What is vaqueros? Cowboy in Spanish. Originated on the Iberian Peninsula. Became the foundation for cowboys. Life of a cowboy. Life of a cowboy. Feeding the animals. Breed horses. They wear boots, jeans, and flannels, cowboy hats. They work from spring until fall. King Ranch in Los Caninos 1853, Captain Richard King purchased land in a Wild Horse Desert. Led first cattle drive. Bad drought led to moving. Took to Los Caninos trial. Nat Love, Bill Pickett, and Jackson Sundown. Nat Love, African American cowboy and former slave, the champion of the West. Bill Pickett was the best known African American rodeo performer of all time. He invented the rodeo sport of bulldogging. Jackson Sundown, Native American rodeo rider, known for performances. Cowboy myths. The lone cowboy, they were never alone. American invented cattle rising. Hispanic brought it over. Work City, all those rings. Go check them out if you want to. All right, so I think this was made by PCC, um, microbiologists, made by Eric Swihart. Period 5. Overview: investigating microscopic organisms. Holland interest codes. Investigate realistic, conventional, all those things. Most important skills and abilities. Needs to have skills in science, reading comprehension, writing, active listening, and critical thinking. Most important knowledge areas. Needs to be knowledge in biology, language skills, chemistry, mathematics, and computer electronics. Typical tasks: examining microorganisms, observing actions of microorganisms, supervise biological technicians and technologists, study bacteria, prepare reports. This is what they're doing right now. Common work activities: getting information, monitor processes, materials or surroundings, identify objects, actions, and events, inspecting equipment, structures, or materials, judging the qualities of things, services, or people. Occupational Occupational Outlook Handbook, Job Outlook next 10 years, projected to grow 8%, 1,900 jobs, or 100 new jobs, needed education, bachelor's degree or higher, PhD, training, lab safety training, related college mayors and careers, biologists, biomedical engineers, chemical engineers, chemists, food scientists, and technologists. Wages, national average $70 and $400. $70.04. Indiana average $53.70. State with highest Maryland and state with lowest West Virginia. $96.860. $48.990. $48.990. Why I chose this career? I enjoy academics, surveys, what I can do now. Take advanced math classes, take advanced science classes, plan on where to go to college. Alright, Native Americans in the West by Dallas and Eliel for Growing West Group Project. What were the first Native Americans that got pushed? The first natives were the reservations. How did the government respond to it? To redraw the boundary in smaller and took the best lands. Do Severalty Act. Positive land for farming. Useful for food and people that did farming before. Negative it. it became a policy. They are now set forth to farm for settlement. The assimilation defined one distinct culture for taking on a cultural traits for another. They are assimilated with an education's and culture for Great Britain, or religion, no, or language, yes. Native American boarding schools. The Native Americans schools taught them not do their culture or religion, or they get a harsh punishment. What kind of harsh punishment did they get? They also diverse rules for men and women. Finally, clothing rules, and somehow disease and malnutrition. Assimilation contrasting view. There were two ideas behind these policies. Some were concerned, others eliminate. Native Americans' culture was inferior. Native Americans fight back. Worked cities that's been sent on links. Links on Discover Education. Alright, Flash Floods by Ava and Callie. Beautiful flowers. Flood, noun, an overflowing of a large amount of water beyond its normal confines, especially over what is normally dry land. All the flood has been around all the time. Explanation percentile classes. 95 to 98 from 99 river about food stage, or river about flood stage. Upstream gauge without flood stage, or without, or with. Cause of floods can be caused by heavy rainfall, cyclones, or tsunami, high tide. Geographical change, water damage to buildings, damage to crops and fields. Movement becomes more difficult. Human responses, houses on stilts, houses built on hills higher up. Most commonly found, deserts, very dense places, Central Africa, North and South America. Deadliest, Mumbai, India, Johnstown, PA. Thailand, China is most expensive. Most recent flood in House Springs, Colorado, costed $1.5 million. Is flash flooding found in North America? Yes. Explanation: Johnstown, Pennsylvania, Nashville, Tennessee. Testimony: Columbus Regional suffered for 2008 flood. Costed $180 million. The flooded water reached for 40 mph as it tore through the steep streets of Boscastle, an emergency planning officer. Transcontinental Road, or Railroad. What is caused by the country to begin the enormous project of the Transcontinental Railroad? They built the railroad to help people trade, commerce, travel, and it opened up new places for settlement. The first railroad in North America was the Ohio and Baltimore Railroad. When was the project started? He started building it in 1863. There was no specific date. Sorry. Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me again. Excuse me again. What was the Pacific Railroad Act in 1862? What did it do? The Pacific Railroad Act was signed by Abraham Lincoln. This act allowed federal government support from the building of the first transcontinental railroad, the 1862 the Pacific Railway Act. Define transcontinental road or the railroad. The transcontinental railroad is a railroad that crosses a continental land mass. Describe what the federal government did the railroad's companies, money payments involved, land grants, etc. They passed an act allowing them to build the railroad. The government granted them money, allowed them to build on a land. Where did the two major railroad companies begin construction? From where to where? There's no train and there's no car that can do this, but mostly a car. It started in Sacramento, California, and went all the way to Omaha in Nebraska. Definitely plane would be much better. Once the railway was completed, how long did it take goods to get from the coast? The coast, how does that compare to today? Find out how long it takes to drive and fly from New York to San Francisco, Chicago to San Francisco, New York City to San Francisco in 3.5 days. Driving would take 43 hours. Flying would take 6 hours and 15 minutes. Chicago to San Francisco would take 2 days and 4 hours. Driving is 31 hours. Flying would take 4 hours and 35 minutes. It's a long drive. What did the railroad encourage? It encouraged people to trade between the east and west of the U.S. All right, I'll see you guys in part 12 and 13 for today.